Today we will begin Activity 1 in the Animal Pet Care Center packet. You will be acting as an office assistant for a veterinarian, Dr. Janet Kreider. Your first task is to set up an electronic database rather than using the old system. So to do this, you're going to use Microsoft Access. So you'll need to open that program. You might find it on the taskbar at the bottom, or you might have to go to Start Programs and find it in your Office Tools under Access. Once Access opens, this is the beginning screen. You are starting from scratch, so you will need to click the blank database icon. You will need to name the database, and you will also, most importantly, need to know where you're storing this database. To do that, you're going to look to the right. You want to be sure to save it in your own folder area. So click on the yellow folder icon. Find your own name. Within your own folder area, you need to go to your 8th grade DIT Access folder. Once you find your own Access folder, let's give the file name to the database as Pet Care. Click OK, and you'll find that you have your Pet Care name set up. It should be going into your own 8th grade DIT Access folder, and click Create. This is the view of a table window, which of course is not yet made. It consists of rows and columns, similar to an Excel spreadsheet. So we want to get the field names set up at the top. In order to decide what fields we're going to need, we might look in your packet to the very back few pages. You will find old handwritten cards for each client or owner, pet owner. If we look at these cards, you'll see that this includes the owner's names, address, home, phone numbers, the pet information, and so on. The large uppercase letters are the field names, which we want to eventually have set up across the top. So in order to create this, we need to change our view. Here are our view options. We have Datasheet View, which we are in now, and Design View. We want to design, so click Design View. It's going to want to know the table name. In Excel, we usually can use the same names but for different objects. So we identify what kind of database object it is by first putting a uncapitalized note at the beginning. So this will be a table, so we simply do TBL. So the name of this table is going to be Clients. Click OK. So again, we are in Design View, and here we want to use those field names that we saw on the slips. In a database, it automatically sets up an ID field. So each client will have their own individual ID number, similar to your student IDs. You'll notice this key, which is called the primary key, meaning that every object in the database will be related to this ID number. We don't want to change this, and the computer will automatically number the IDs. So now let's take a look again at the slips at the back of the packet. If you look at Bergstrom's client record form, we only want to use the headings. So we can use all caps, and we're going to list last name, Moving to the right, the data type. There are different types of data, but most of them in this database are going to be text. The description category is self-explanatory, so we don't need to describe what we mean by last name. Move under last name. Now we want to enter the field first name. Again, that will be text, self-explanatory. Under first name, we have address. We can leave it as a text field, although we may have numbers and letters mixed together, but it's not numbers that we would add. Next, we have city/state in one field. We'll use text. The next is zip code. And we can use that as a text field. Again, it's numbers, but it's not numbers that we would calculate with. Now we have home phone numbers. Text. Again, it's not going to do calculations. Cell phone. The pet name. The type of animal, generally dog or cats. The breed of the animal. The sex. The DOB, meaning the date of birth. The date of birth is generally going to have to be month, day, and year. So when we look at this, we can see that it's a date and time. The color of the animal. And when that animal last came in for an exam. And that again will be a date and time data type. Now that we have all our fields named, we want to decide how wide we need each field to be. So for the last name field, you could scan through some of your customers now and look at their last names and give an approximate guess as to how long it might need to be. But let's estimate. But down at the bottom you see your field property areas. So the field size or the width of this column definitely should not be 255 characters. So let's change that to 20. On the first name field, let's change that to 10 characters. The address field might be pretty long because you might have a long street name. So let's give that 25 characters. The city and state may also be quite long, knowing that we need both a town and the state, but we'll give that 15. The zip code, generally you have a 5-character zip code, but you also will see zip codes that have a hyphen and then 4 numbers after that, which would be a total of 10. Home phone numbers, if you count the digits in a number for phones, would be 12 characters. Cell phone, same amount, 12 characters. The pet name, generally they're not too long, so we'll give that 10 characters. The type of animal, we're going to have dog or cats. I guess you could have snakes or something like that, but knowing that we're having just dog or cats, we'll just do 5. The breed of the animal, 10 spaces available. The sex, which we're going to mark either as male or female, we can choose as 1 letter. Date of birth. As we marked this before, we have it being a date with month, day, and year. So if you look down in your area here, we input mask. Let's look at our designs for the date. So it might say must save table first, so we'll say yes. We've already given it a name. So now here are our different date designs. Let's just use a simple design where you have month, day, and year. And finish. For the color field, we're going to use 15. And again, for the last exam date, we can again look at the input mask options. Say yes. And again, we can use the short date where we just use the month, day, and year. We don't really need to know the time. So we have added 14 fields. We have a total of 15 where the computer will set up their ID numbers automatically. We can save this. We notice this object is now a table called clients. It is a table object. You can then go look at your datasheet view. Now here are the column headings that we created. The column widths basically look the same here, but when we go to type in data, we'll have just the right amount of spaces. Notice now we have no clients, but we do have it all ready to type our clients into the database. That concludes Activity 1. If you're following along in your packet, you could move on to Activity 2, creating a form and entering the records. Each person's name and information will be considered one record. In order to create what we call a form, we want to start by clicking Create. You can create tables, which we just designed. You can create forms, reports, and other objects. We're going to create a form, which will help us set up and enter each individual client on a separate page by itself, rather than filling in the table through these columns. So to create a form, we want to look in this area, click More Forms. We're going to use the Form Wizard, which will lead us through the steps. Once you get to the Form Wizard, we need to decide what we're going to use to develop this form. Well, the only object we have available right now is the table that we just created. We need to know what fields we want from this table to be placed on the form. We can simply move all the fields over. The ID, remember, is going to be made by the database itself, so we don't want to type that in. So we're going to take the ID and move it back over. Click Next. You have different designs ready-made. The design that we want to use will be the justified type. So you'll be having the column heading above and the blank below it. Click Next. We have different styles that we can use. Your veterinarian has decided that she likes the look of the urban style. So we'll use the urban style. Next. What title do you want for your form? Well, we don't want it to be a table, so we need to erase the table that we had created. It's a form that we're making, so we put our FRM, should be in lowercase, to signify that it is a form. And this form is going to be called New clients. And finish. So now you have an object that is a table and you have an object that is a form. This is the form that you would fill in for each client. You will see how many records you have down below. So obviously this is the first record. According to your practice set, it says that you need to enter the client records from forms 2.1 through 2.10 at the end of your packet. So let's go to the back of your packet and find client record form 2-1. It is for Bergstrom Esther. So you're going to enter in, retype the handwritten information for this client. Bergstrom, and then press your Tab key to get from cell to cell. When you get to your date of birth, it's going to require you to do a 2-digit month, so you may need to put 0 in front of some of the months. So remember that we use the date form, so it's coming up with that format for our date of birth and last exam fields. So now you have the first person's information in record number 1. So to move on to record 2, you simply press Tab. Now you're on record 2. Go ahead and continue filling in forms 2.2 through 2.10. You will see a stop message after form 2.10. Do not enter any more beyond 2.10. So stop where you see the stop messages on page 13. I will come back to you and give you time to fill in all the other clients. The last client you should enter in Activity 2 is Edith McClellan's record. Once you have finished the last in Activity 2, you then may want to go and look at your layout view. Notice you have all your fields. If you look at your design view, this is what that looks like. And again, your form view. Just get used to knowing about the different views. You can then close your form. And here's the old table. We want to close the table, but double click to reopen it. And now all the names that you have put into the records are now all listed in your table. You'll see down at the bottom you have all 10 records, and each person did get assigned an ID number. If you need to, you might take a few minutes to double check that you've typed items correctly. You can widen the columns like you might in Excel to double check. Notice there were a few people that did not have cell phone numbers. No problem. You might also check their spellings of their last names. So proofreading is very important because anything you do with this data will contain the same mistakes that you've left. So make sure you proofread your content. And that ends activity 2.